You see, this family must keep its secrets quiet. And it all began when Casey was 8 years old and her father came into her room and began to touch her inappropriately. And it escalated.
The Casey Anthony defense alleges Casey was sexually abused by her father, George, but when George Anthony took the witness stand earlier in the trial, this is what he had to say to that.
Have you ever sexually molested your daughter, Casey Anthony?
No, sir.
So, is Casey the victim of sexual abuse or a liar? Well, we know for sure she's a liar, but is she lying about this? And if she is a victim, will she eventually have to say so on the stand to prove it? I'm back with criminal defense attorney Mark Eiglarsh and Linda Kenny Bodden. She's a former member of Casey Anthony's defense team and an HLN contributor. Also with us is Hemu Nigam. He is a former Los Angeles deputy district attorney who had prosecuted adult and child sex crimes. Hemu, I want to go to you first. You've obviously worked with sexual abuse victims. Do you see evidence that Casey is an abuse survivor?
Well, the reality is you can't ever tell just by looking at somebody and say that person is a survivor of child abuse. Whether or not it happened is between the father and the daughter. And then we have to take her word for it if she chooses to disclose how it happened, when it happened, where it happened, and all those types of things. And whether she told a friend even when it was happening. But at the end of the day, does it have anything to do with the trial? I don't know, and I don't think so.
Okay, so if there's two questions here. Do you think that she's going to have to take the stand to substantiate this? And then I guess as the ancillary question is, if it doesn't have anything to do with the trial, would they risk things by putting her on the stand?
Well, I think what I've been starting to see in the defense is the prosecution tells a story, and when there's a defense story to tell, they will tell it. And instead, what I'm starting to see, a whole bunch of red herrings being thrown about the courtroom, these stinky fish that people are looking at this way and that, and hoping that they don't focus on the true evidence that's already come in. If she doesn't take the stand and there's no other way to bring that into the courtroom, then that opening statement becomes just what it is, an opening statement, not evidence. The judge is going to say, ignore it completely, and then the jury's going to, if they do wonder what happened, are going to be somewhat confused by, well, did they change their mind? Did it not really happen? What's going on here? Maybe the prosecution is completely right.
Interesting. Interesting. These are all distractions at this point. Now, Casey claims that she was sexually abused by dad, yet listen to this jailhouse conversation.
I want you to know, I want to take your pain away from you. So, you can tell me anything.
I know that, Dad.
I miss you, sweetie.
I know that. I miss you, too.
I wish I could have been a better dad and better grandpa, you know?
You've been a great dad, and you've been the best grandfather. Don't for a second think otherwise.
Linda, to you, does that defense, rather, does that sort of tender interaction undermine some of what the defense is saying?
Well, a couple of things, Dr. Drew. First of all, you can have a double entendre for anything that you see here. I love you. They're both professing their love for each other. Is that a father-daughter love in the normal terms, or is there something more? Is there some kind of code there? So I don't think we can look at those tapes and let that answer the question. And with regard, Dr. Drew, to the idea that Hemu put out there that the defense is throwing up red herrings, let's face it, the prosecution had to prove how this child died. And it's very important for the defense to show through responsible science and responsible scientists that you can't make that determination, that this is a prosecution construct. So I think we have to get over the fact that this is all about the theater of whether or not she was abused, but it's about the fact of whether or not the prosecution can prove their case.
Well, Mark, I think you would agree with Linda, would you not?
Well, I don't always agree with Linda. I agree with her on the second part, not the first part. I think that she's not being, I don't know, candid with everybody when she suggests that jailhouse interview is something that she wished that the defense didn't have to deal with. Whether abuse occurred or not, it's
Mark,
not something that
I didn't say they don't have to deal with it. I didn't say they don't have to deal with it. Okay?
All right, it's not necessarily it's not something that helps the defense because it shows that she's not all freaked out about what allegedly took place, which has not been proven. It can only be proven if she were to take the stand, number one. And number two, it then doesn't get to the vertical leap of excusing her bizarre behavior. It just doesn't get there.
All right, let's
let me add this.
You don't really
let me
have
add
to...
this to this.
Okay.
Let me add this to the conversation. I've handled many, many child molestation cases. Go ahead. And I have found that victims often still feel love and affection towards their abuser.
That's correct.
So I don't look at that one way or the other.
Correct.
I absolutely agree
We all
with you.
agree on that fact.
I agree with you 100%. Yes, and in fact, I get to see the other side of that. We're actually treating people and asking them to reconcile their hatred and their love and find forgiveness. So yes, I know well that that does exist. Switch gears quickly. In 1993, brothers Lyle and Kyle Menendez stood trial for the murders of their parents. The Menendez defense claimed the brothers were sexually abused by their father. Listen to this.
On August 20th, 1989, did you and your brother kill your mother and father? Did you kill them for money? Is that no?
No.
Why did you kill your parents?
Because we were afraid.
All right, Mark, do you see similarities in the Anthony defense?
Yes, however, I see a lot more differences. First of all, when they opened up their mouth, they didn't start off with 8 strikes against them like they would on the credibility scale like Casey. So that's first of all. And second of all, they alleged that the ultimate crime that they committed, they tried to get the jurors to almost excuse that because of their abuse. She's not doing that. So in a way, she's got it easier. She's just trying to get the jurors to excuse her erratic, abhorrent behavior, but not necessarily the alleged killing of her daughter.
Right, I think that's right. We always forget the fact.
Dr. Drew.
Linda,
I was going to say, or the death of her daughter. And also, they started out with, remember, a bloody crime scene. These were 2 parents that you didn't need a medical examiner to say were shotgunned to death. So they started out, I mean, you want to talk about a bad way to start, that's also a bad way to start out. Let's not assume that Casey Anthony killed her daughter. I think that the evidence so far points to it's probably going to be at least a manslaughter verdict, but I wouldn't assume a homicidal killing here.
Well, we're going to actually talk about what she's up against the next. Go ahead.
What I'd like to say, I was actually in the DA's office in LA during the Menendez trial, and I think it's kind of bizarre to say, because I was abused by my father, if that is true, I therefore killed my daughter. So I'm not quite sure if there's any connection.
That's not what they're alleging. They're not alleging that here.
Hey, Mark, guys, I'm going to stop you right there. Yes, Mark, I agree. We got to remind everybody that is not what they're alleging. They're trying to explain the abhorrent behavior after the child was gone. With her knowledge that the child was dead, she behaved in ways that are just despicable, frankly. And that's what has us all worked up about Casey. And they have, not only have they not made the connection to her killing the child, we don't have a cause of death. Like you said, Linda, when you got a shotgun, you got a cause of death. And now we have a skull that wasn't properly handled. This calvaria was not taken off the skull. So there's some real serious questions here. One quick thing about the skull I want to ask you, Linda. We showed earlier the prosecution presented this animation to the jury. Take a look at this. Kaylee's photo with a skull and duct tape superimposed over her face. It's a disturbing video. There we go. Oh, it's just a nasty video. Linda, I heard that you were outraged over this. Do you think that them having done this could help Casey in appeal?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I mean, you know, between that and the heart that appeared and disappeared, and all the junk science, I wouldn't even say junk science, the stupid science that's now been let in, and now we find that the medical examiners, for your interview with Dr. Kessler, lost their certification, and you're supposed to open the skull. I mean, these are all things we didn't talk about before, did we?
Right, and I don't understand. I'm going to say one thing. Okay, well, Mark, Linda, Nigam, thank you so much for joining me. Excuse me, Hemu Nigam. Thank you, all of you. But I want to repeat that the medical examiner also pointed out that my theory about the duct tape being applied after death as a way of preventing a trail of DNA. Remember, undertakers did this for centuries. They put cotton in the mouth, they put duct tape around the head to prevent the contents from coming out. And nobody's bringing that up in trial. That's bizarre to me. They're saying the tape caused death or contributed to death. As a physician, I don't see that. I see that somebody knew how to handle a dead body, in particular a child, which can be turned upside down and stuff will come out. It will, and they were trying to prevent a trail, it seems to me. I don't understand why none of that's showing up. Thank you to my panel. Many of you have already convicted Casey of first-degree murder out there. I know that. But what if the jury has a different verdict? We're going to spell out the options that the jury has after we come back.